Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. I want to warn everybody in advance that I've got one of those winter bugs, cold croup or something. So my voice is cracking. I'm going to muddle through the show tonight. So if I crack, just overlook me. Tonight I'm having the return of Jeff Hilling, and he's going to tell us about his new book, The Great Bigfoot Film Mystery, which he's done a lot of research into over the years. And he's been, looking to prove that, because he believes that this film is legit, and he's trying to support why it's legit, and he's going to tell us about it. You can find his website at www.pattersonfilm.com. Pardon me. And for those that want to call in, the number is 832-632-7904, and I'll be pasting his link in the chat room. So, Jeff, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back on the Paranormal Palace.
Well, it's fantastic to have you here. I know last time we talked, you didn't have a book out yet, and you were just doing the research and posting it to the, your website, and you had made a lot of very valid points about the Bigfoot thing. But since we're got a whole new stock of listeners now, why don't you tell them real quick what it was that got you interested in the Patterson film in the first place?
Well, like many people, they were exposed to the documentaries and movies of the early 70s where they would show the elusive creature in the Patterson film, and it spread into the pop culture from there on out. And that's at first when I became interested, and it wasn't until several years back from now that I started taking the research of this a little more seriously, looking deeper into the mysteries of the Patterson film, and have uncovered lots of really neat stuff about it in my book, The Great Bigfoot Film Mystery.
Okay, now, before we go any further, we can get that book from a link on your website, am I correct?
Yeah, go to pattersonfilm.com. You can pick up a copy. It's doing really well. I'm very surprised people have received it very well. And it covers the Patterson film. It doesn't... It's not just Bigfoot, it's actually a book specifically about all the events about the Patterson film, and it goes in a lot of different directions than books about the Patterson film have gone otherwise. So it is different material, taking a different approach, looking at the old evidence, really. Okay.
Well, I know that the Patterson Bigfoot film was one of the biggest, probably most... talked about controversial films to ever hit the internet, and I think just about almost everybody knows about it. Everywhere you go with a Bigfoot site, you see the picture of the Bigfoot walking. It's one of the rare close-ups where you got a really clear shot of them. But yet, in spite of how clear the footage is, some people seem to doubt that that's the right picture. Can you kind of share with us a little reason why people have trouble accepting it?
Well, I think they have a right to be skeptical of it, and I'm still somewhat skeptical of it. I don't buy into it 100%. However, I do explain my position. I do tend to believe that it is real, and if it isn't, we got something that's more amazing than if it were real. A man in a suit with characteristics of a costume I've never ever experienced, not even in high-tech Hollywood movies to this day. We see in this detail of this film, we see the muscle movements and details that were never really been able to be replicated. And there have been several recreations of the Patterson film done throughout the years. And I document those in my book, The Great Bigfoot Film Mystery. You can read about them and see how they did. They didn't do very well, in my opinion. And I think if anybody looks at the Patterson film and puts it up even to the best special effects that you see in movies, do the movies fool you? They don't fool me. They don't look as real as anything we see in this Patterson film taken back in 1967.
Yeah, and there was one guy that used to know the guy that actually filmed it, as I understand it, that claims that he was the one that was in the suit, supposedly, but that's been, proven to be that he's, if I'm not mistaken, that he was just doing that to discredit the original maker of the film. Is that correct?
Well, we don't know the motives, but yeah, there has been a gentleman by the name of Bob Hieronymus who came out 6 years ago, I believe, and claimed that he was the man in the suit, that Roger Patterson, the man who filmed the footage, was going to pay him $1,000, but never did. And he didn't bring it up till a few years back, so that was 30-some-odd years that had gone by before he happened to mention anything about it, which is very curious to me. And he's told some conflicting stories. So in my research, what I've concluded about the Bob Hieronymus situation is that if he was the man in the suit, then I'm not convinced he was, just based upon his own testimony, and also based upon a recreation that was performed not too many years ago, where Bob Hieronymus got into a Philip Morris brand gorilla suit, which was also claimed in Greg Long's book that was the type of suit used in the filming of the Bigfoot creature in '67, and they recreated it, and really, really fell short of what we saw in the Patterson film.
Now, also, I think I've seen a picture of Bob in this here suit, and from what I saw of it, it didn't look like it was even the, same color as the suit that, not the suit, but as the actual Bigfoot Patterson film was. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was quite a color difference, but even give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe it came out a little weird on the film, or because of the sun, or who knows. But nonetheless, we don't just see a different color. We see different textures in the creature in the Patterson film as well. Some of the hair looks long, some of it looks short. You see these little, you can see the spinal column in this alleged creature. You can see muscle definition in it. You see various colors too. It's not like it seems that we're looking at a creature that has slight varieties in the color of its hair and fur. There's grays, there's dark browns, there's blacks. All can be seen. It's a very seemingly complicated coloring to this. It's not a very, when you look at a standard suit, it'll be 100% the same color, same texture too, same length of hair. When you get a standard gorilla suit, much like the ones that Philip Morris made. And what we see in the Patterson film, it has so many details, so many varying colors, muscle tones, things that are anomalous to normal costumes. You don't tend to see these types of things just happen in a costume. And you also don't see them even if they were planned to be that way, especially back in 1967 by a person who had no knowledge of costumery. Was not a professional costume maker by trade.
Okay. Now, where can a person get a copy of the Patterson film if they would like to check it out for themselves?
Well, unfortunately, they don't sell copies. They don't, but you can find a lot of them online. However, those are not very good quality. Just like most things you watch online, they're usually pretty rotten quality. So to get a really good copy, what I recommend is to actually tape some of the Bigfoot documentaries that are out there. Bigfoot, the Definitive Guide, things like that. History Channel plays them, and they'll show footage of the Patterson film. So for your average person, that would be the best place to get a copy for free, because there really hasn't been anything official released. So sometimes you can pick those up on DVD as well, too, if you want to analyze it a little further. That's your best quality to your average person. Other than that, you have to be pretty much an insider to get a really good look at a copy of the Patterson film. You have to get one from Mrs. Patterson herself.
Oh, is she still alive?
As far as I know, yes.
Is it possible to contact her on the internet or some kind of way?
No, she doesn't really. I mean, there may be, but not that I know of. She keeps kind of a low profile, but apparently she still owns the rights to the film.
Okay, and okay, so you can't get one there. In your book, though, do you have any photos that you have, put in there so that people can see pictures of what you're talking about?
Actually, my book is not filled with photos. There's no photos in it at all. It discusses the arguments, the theories, the history of the Patterson film, and all the surrounding events. The reason I purposely didn't include photos is I didn't want to bog down the book with the same Bigfoot picture, and everybody knows what that picture looked like. And this is also a film. I wanted to go a little different direction. You can buy Bigfoot books out there with pictures of the frame 352, and then they'll have diagrams, and then they'll have measurements, and these are all good information. But they've been done about at least a half a dozen times in a half dozen books. So what I wanted to do was add something to this mystery. In other words, I wanted to uncover things that haven't been talked about. I didn't want to go over all the details of the statistics. You can buy that's already been done to death. So this takes the Patterson film mystery in a different direction. It looks at aspects that are rarely talked about and thought about and presented.
Okay, so it does give you a lot of detail. Do you know if there's any pictures floating around of any of the film footage, stills?
Yeah, you can go to a lot of websites and visit my website, PattersonFilm.com, probably has a couple, and other websites do as well. Unfortunately, there's not too many with tons of detail in them. And the reason is, once again, a lot of the original footage has been only looked at by professionals who've gotten a certain clearance from Mrs. Patterson to take a hold of the original film and then make copies of it, such as Bill Munns has an excellent website, and he's got a few photos on there as well. But, yeah, we haven't been able to be privy, unfortunately, to a lot of the high detail of the high-definition photos.
That's too bad. That would really be helpful to people.
Yeah, it would be. But unfortunately, there's been no compliance in that department. I guess, maybe they haven't really marketed the film like they could.
Okay. Now, will this book be coming out on Amazon in the future? Do you know?
I might put it on Amazon. Right now you can get on the website. There's a couple other sources you can find the book, so it shouldn't be hard for people to get it and pay for it online. Just do a search on it. But you can find it out there. It's doing really well in sales. I'm surprised, and I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. People have really been positive in their reactions towards it and the reviews on it. So I'm really happy about that because I've put a lot of time into it, a lot of work, a lot of thought. This mystery goes deeper than just statistics. It goes deeper than just film analysis. There's so many stories surrounding it.
Right.
And riddles within it and side stories. And I also purposely cut out some stories that just aren't true and just kind of muddy the mix and cut to the crux of the matter so people can kind of judge for themselves. What do you think about the Patterson film after you read the book? It's a new way of looking at it.
Okay. Now, on your website, you got a lot of articles about this as well, don't you?
Yeah, there's lots of articles on Bigfoot, old articles that go back from the mid-1800s, mainstream newspapers talking about the existence of wild beasts, hairy men, and mountain devils, and all kinds of sort of names for these things. This isn't a new phenomenon, as some people may think.
Right.
It's a mystery that goes back well over 100 years, as far as we have documented. We don't know if this is still to this day. Obviously, there's no physical evidence that has been conclusive that these creatures are in existence, but the tales, the folklore, seem to just increase throughout time. Is this a real creature, or is this part of a mass hysteria? That's what we're looking to find out.
Okay. Now, I was at your website, and I saw a NASA report link. What can you tell me about the NASA report?
Yeah, that was a very, very detailed account of the Patterson film. One of the most technical looks at the Patterson film, and I encourage everybody to really go through that part of my website on pattersonfilm.com and learn what they're saying. It's pretty interesting, and it's the most detailed analysis ever done to date. And it talks about the measurements, things like that of the film, the height of the creature, the size of the prints. They do all the math, and it explains their conclusions, which are actually startling, what they come up with from their estimations. I encourage anybody to check that out and look at the film again in a new light. They did a very good job. And what they did was basically, it's all technical. And, you can find that information in some books as well. There are a lot of the books I've written have included information like that, charts, diagrams, and those are helpful as well when you're pursuing the Great Bigfoot film mystery.
Okay. Let me see what else I saw over here that caught my interest. I wanted to ask you about while we're here. Okay. Pardon me. Yeah, I see you got historical articles, you got tabloids, you got links to documentaries, anything anybody could possibly want to know. You got the introduction, you got on here, what's coming up new. But what is the Argosy magazine?
That was one of the original magazine articles that came out. The first article, actually, that Roger Patterson had given was to Argosy magazine. And that was dealing with the events that just had transpired, what he caught on film. And that is his eyewitness testimony, in a sense, one of several, but it was the first one of his eyewitness testimony of the account of dealing with shooting Bigfoot on camera. And that article is historic and important for that reason, because it was the first article that he had freely given. And it's a great testimony and great history to what you're seeing in the film, how it transpired, what came about. And it adds, fills in some of the blanks, too, that people wonder about the film. Where was the shot? How many, reels did you use? All this, that's all covered in that article, straight from the horse's mouth. Okay.
So, aside from Bob Hieronymus, does Roger Patterson have any other skeptics or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's countless skeptics out there about, Bigfoot in general, but the Patterson film. There's plenty of people who are believers in Bigfoot, too, albeit this is a small camp, yet they will tell you that they don't believe in the Patterson film. They believe that that's a fake, yet they're still following Bigfoot. People, from the Tom Biscardi camp, last I checked, that was his belief, which is, like I said, it's a relative minority. It seems like most people who are believers in the Bigfoot usually believe that the Patterson film is the best evidence to date that we have. They usually believe it's authentic. Most of the people who are tracking Bigfoot, following Bigfoot, who are into Bigfoot.
Okay, now, if I understood you correctly, did you just say that Tom Biscardi didn't believe in the Patterson film?
Yeah, last time I talked to him, I was on the show, it was a couple of years ago, but he was telling me that he did not believe that it was genuine. He believes the Hieronymus account, last I checked, unless he's changed his story. And, that's fine. But That's usually when people are believers in Bigfoot, I found almost 80-90% of the time they believe in the Patterson film, or they think it's a pretty good chance that was real. So that's why I just happened to mention him, because that's kind of a minority view for people who believe in Bigfoot. Usually people who don't believe in the Patterson film aren't believers in Bigfoot at all either.
Well, I asked you about him because I happen to be kind of familiar with him to some degree. I've heard of his work and I've been to his show. But I've also heard tell that he was involved with the fake Bigfoot put in the ice chest incident that went down not long ago.
Yeah, he was the man who purchased it from the two guys who were police officers at the time in Georgia. Tom's the one who ran down there, gave him a check, basically, $50,000. And it turned out to be nothing more than a Halloween costume and ice. That was crazy. And I was actually living down there at the time when that was going on. And, you know, I hadn't seen the costume yet, but first time I heard about it was on the internet or on the news. And I thought, wow, this is going to be really interesting. I can't wait to see how this turns out. And sure enough, what did we get? Nothing but a hoax.
Well, you know, that's part of why I thought it was so ironic that you said he didn't think the Patterson film was legit, because he's involved in something not legit, trying to debunk something that probably is.
Yeah, that's
ironic.
I don't know. There's so many Bigfoot. The world of Bigfoot is a crazy place. I'll tell you that much. I'm not gonna make any bones about it. It's a very weird world with a lot of strange characters in it, and you know, take their info for what it's worth. That's more that I can recommend. You know, some of these people are on the level. Some of these people, I don't know. I just try to stick to the information when I do my research of closest to the source, historic information. I try to avoid a lot of this hearsay and things like that, and just draw my own conclusions based on the evidence that we have available. So you can't always take everybody's word for it. Do the information and research for yourself. Try to think logically with a clean head, and that's what my book tries to do.
Okay, that sounds like a winner to me.
Yeah.
My wife's listening to this show, and she's a Bigfoot skeptic, and I don't understand why she's asking this question, because it's doubtful you'd put all this work into the Patterson film if you did not believe in Bigfoot, but she asked nonetheless if you believe in Bigfoot.
Well, you're asking me the $85,000 question. Yes, do I believe in Bigfoot? To be quite honest, I don't know. I'm an honest person who's looking into the mystery like a lot of other people. I really don't know. I think the Patterson film is the most fascinating piece of evidence out there. I'll tell you that much. Everything else to me isn't that interesting. There really is no second best piece of Bigfoot footage or information or evidence out there. I mean, can you think of one? I can't. Nothing really I find that fascinating about tracks and things like that. Yeah, they might be real. Tracks may be real, but at the same time, they could be fake. They're interesting, they're intriguing. However, they don't really tell us yes or no. And they don't prove anything to even the most easy skeptic out there. They just ask more questions than they answer. So if people are going to prove the existence of Bigfoot, I believe that they need to come up with a Bigfoot itself.
Right.
Everything else is really just wasting time, if you ask me. If you want to get a photo of Bigfoot, and that's why you're out there for your own personal wanting to get a photo, fine, go for it. But at the same time, is it going to prove anything to anybody? No, it's not. Even if it's a good picture. Because in this day and age, what can we believe with pictures and videotape? We can manipulate things to the point nowadays where you don't know what's real any longer. And evidence like that doesn't hold up like it used to. So if you had the best footage of a Bigfoot creature out there, I don't think that would prove anything to anybody. What we really need is the creature itself, living or dead, or some remains of it.
Well, nowadays they got programs that you can open up a video in and break it down by the frame and take out any frame and modify it any way you want to.
Absolutely. And so if somebody comes up to you and us and we say, I got the best Bigfoot footage in the world, and it's 10, 12 solid minutes of a Bigfoot just doing its thing, and they got sharp focus and it's moving around. I mean, it's almost to the point where you wouldn't know whether it was just a digital manipulation, if it was a costume mixed with some computer animation, or if it was some kind of strict computer animation program. It's getting to the point where video evidence isn't going to explain anything. It's just it might pique people's curiosity, but, as far as saying, hey, I proved the world that Bigfoot exists, if you're out there with cameras, if you're out there with anything less than a tranquilizer gun or a regular gun, you're wasting time. And that's just my own personal opinion, and I know that's not popular amongst people who are into Bigfoot. Not everybody.
Right.
Some people it is. Some people have the same perspective as I do. But I'm not out to win friends and influence people. I'm out to just tell you what I think.
Okay, Jeff. One of the listeners in the chat room was curious what your zodiac sign is.
I don't believe in astrology, but I guess that would be Gemini.
Gemini, okay. I'll tell you what, I'm not real big on astrology, or at least not the horoscopes you get nowadays. But I can say this, if you go to Leo, some of the descriptions they give for it fits me to a T.
Well, yeah, it's kind of human nature. You can kind of pick things out and, hey, that's me, and I don't buy into it.
Alrighty. Well, how long have you been, I might have asked this earlier and forgot, but how long have you been doing the research on this film?
Well, several years now. I don't know. I didn't actually put down a date when I started, so I would say at least, it's been 4 or 5 years now of solid, serious research on the Patterson film itself. Looking at the details of the film, all the mysteries, everything written about it, whether it's in a book form, an article form, audio interviews, and just looking at the skeptics' interviews as well. You go on message boards and these people who are skeptical about Bigfoot and the Patterson film, what are they saying? I believe that they have valid arguments as well. And I believe if we're looking for the truth, we should look at both sides of the arguments and see which ones hold water better. That's how you should look at anything that claims to be incredible. And the Patterson film is an incredible film. And it's so incredible that I came to the conclusion that even if it is a fake, the fact that this was a fake is actually more incredible than if it were a real creature. Because if it were a real creature, then what we have on film is exactly what we think we have on film. It's a creature we've never seen before. It's very strange and odd to us. However, it's still just a creature, part of the creation. Whereas if it's a man in a suit, it's displaying very, very strange characteristics, such as pendulous breasts, muscle movements in diverse areas in the creature, the legs, the back, part of the torso. You can see characteristics that are just weird for a costume. We've never seen anything like this in Hollywood to this day. And what makes you think that a rodeo rider from 1967 could just build these in his spare time? If he did it that way, it was almost as if a man in a suit became a Bigfoot creature for 1 minute in time. Not saying that's what happened, but that's almost what it seems like.
Okay. Now, since you're kind of skeptical, and I'd have to ask you, just out of curiosity, what do you think Bigfoot may possibly be, if not a creature or what everybody seems to think it is?
If Bigfoot exists, what is it? Maybe it's just a Bigfoot. Has anybody ever considered that? Maybe it's its own, its own phylum. We don't know. I don't think it's an ape. I don't think it is because of the way its thumbs are, the way its feet and toes are shaped in a gorilla, look nothing like the creature we see in the film. Could it be a wild man? Possible. That's a possibility. That's something that people have actually thought for a long time. Actually, before the Patterson film, a lot of these articles describe hairy wild men. Could that have been a Bigfoot? I don't know. There's various reports in various parts of the country since the mid-1800s and when newspapers started becoming popular, all over the place talking about strange creatures, hairy wild men, monsters with a lot of hair, coming out, and it seems very bizarre. They didn't have a word for it at the time, but then the Indians had many words for it. The Indians have long had this tradition in their culture, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but of Sasquatch. Some even claim that they're an elder Indian tribe that was kind of a lost tribe, if you will. These are all, I'm not saying these are the answer, but there's a lot of answers out there. And we just happen to not know what it is right now because we don't even know what a Bigfoot is when you get down to it. It's something hairy in the woods that people see. That's the best we have. And we have a piece of footage that Roger Patterson filmed back in 1967 that might be one of these creatures. It sure looks like the description that we hear. So it's either a man in a suit or it's actually one of these creatures that have been talked about for hundreds of years.
Okay, Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt, but I thought I'd let you know we had a call come in, and I went ahead and brought them in with us. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing just great. How are you?
I'm good. It's Jennifer. It's for the question is for Jeff. Jeff, this Bigfoot, okay? Like I know we call him a Sasquatch and all this, or maybe Yeti. Could he come from the hollow earth? I mean, I've heard so many, and I've read so many documents on this, and a lot of times Bigfoot does come up from the hollow, with the hollow earth subject.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard people say that they could be some sort of subterranean being. I don't rule that out as a possibility. That's certainly a possibility. It's just as good as some of the other possibilities as well. I've not found any personal information that would where I would be convinced in that, however. But at the same time, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I've heard a lot more far-fetched things that I would say, you know what, they're probably not a chance of that theory. But, yeah, they could live easily in hollow earth or a cave or who knows.
Or a tunnel. All right, and there's also that fact that it might be an animal, like a human descendant, instead of it just didn't evolve. Like I was watching a PBS documentary on PBS, and they were saying that millions and millions and millions of years ago, there was this type of ape or monkey, if you will, that was pretty tall, and they were very shy, and they wouldn't fend for each other. Like they were just very, very scared. And apparently the species just went out, Could it be part of maybe just its remaining few species of the jungle that we don't see normally?
Well, they could be, here's what I think. Seeing you brought up the subject, I don't believe in evolution. I think evolution is the biggest lie there is. I think if you look at the science at it, evolution doesn't hold any water. There should be tons of transitional species out there, and there are none. So I tend to think the real science supports creationist view. So I actually believe that God created everything just as it was. So I don't buy into evolution. And I don't think Bigfoot is a product of evolution if it is real. I think Bigfoot is its own creature if it is real, just like the apes are and the cattle and everything else.
Okay. Well, if you don't believe in evolution, I can't ask any more questions. All right.
I can talk more about evolution if you want. I'm good on talking with that as well. It's a very interesting subject, and I encourage anybody to look into it for themselves. Don't just take my word for it. Look at a good...
I'm not.
Yeah. Look at a good website like Answers in Genesis or something like that. The science is there, and it's all very scientific. To think that, even Darwin himself said if my theory is true, basically to paraphrase Darwin, he said that there should be tons of transitional species found in the fossil records. There are none. We don't see half cats, half billy goats, or whatever they claim creature turned into what creature. I think if you look deeper into what we've been taught in the textbooks throughout school, I think you're going to find that it's a very scientific approach to look at the creation science.
I do respect Darwin. I really do.
Well, you got to understand, he wasn't a genius. He had a theory. Just like we're sitting here theorizing about Bigfoot. There was it was nothing more than a theory thought up by a man. I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was a theory, and science should be able to support theories. I'm all about science and theories, but I think when you look at the...
so am I.
Yeah, so just look into it. I mean, a lot of times we haven't been taught the real perspective on things, and people who are into things that are paranormal and weird, and they tend to look at things a little differently than most. And they tend to look for, they tend to be the most open-minded people, I find. Whether or not they're right or wrong, you can debate different issues, but they tend to look at both sides of the issue when it comes to Bigfoot, whether it comes to UFOs or whatever concept you're talking about. So I always encourage people, that's another one people should look into and decide for themselves. And I've looked into it for years, and I've found that we've been had as a culture. And when it...
That is true.
Yeah, education is one of those things that we've been taught a lot of stuff. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for answering my questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks
sir.
for calling in, Jen.
Bye.
Bye-bye. She's a very nice young lady.
Yes, she is.
So, while you were talking to her, though, I got to thinking about it. And I had a guy on my show when I was still over at Blog Talk Radio, I think within my first year. And, he was a pretty nice guy, became a host himself. But his theory was that Bigfoot could be descendants of the Ebionites, from Esau, in other words.
Yes. Yeah, there's a passage in the Old Testament talks about Esau being a hairy man, a very hairy descent. Now, it doesn't say so much that it's like a Bigfoot creature, and I think it's wild speculation to make that leap from Esau to Bigfoot. But it is, we don't know where we're descended from. I mean, let's face it, some of us have hairy genes in us. And if you take the wild man perspective, yeah, it certainly is possible that there's a hairy wild man out there. people with a lot of hair. I mean, when you look at the disorder I put on my website, PattersonFilm.com, hypertrichosis. That's the disorder that people like Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, sideshow performer back at the beginning of last century, before this one, had, hair covered all over their face and parts of their body. Some people, even their entire body, basically. So there are genetics within us that can display amazing traits such as lots of hair. And that definitely is something you could look into, take an account for it. But, whether it was a descendant of Esau or not, I don't know. I've heard that theory, though. In fact, I may even know who you came up with that theory. There's a couple people that like to talk about that theory that I'm well aware of. So do you remember who came up with that?
Oh, I know exactly who he was. I was friends with him for 3 years. His name's Thomas Hughes, and there's a chance you might have even been on his show.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but it seems to be gaining a little bit of steam. I don't know. I've heard a few people talk about it as a possibility. Who knows? I think it's a little bit wildly speculative. But yeah, it's a theory.
Okay. Real quick, can you kind of give us a summary of your book and, what people can look forward to if they decide to purchase it?
Yeah, basically it's called The Great Bigfoot Film Mystery. You can get it at the website, PattersonFilm.com, and comes in hardback, softback, whatever you want. And basically it's going to cover the mystery itself. It's going to cover all aspects of the Patterson film, except all the technical ones that have already been discussed. And this kind of goes where the other books haven't on the Patterson film. It talks about who Roger Patterson was, Bigfoot's identity. It talks about the potential of a magical monkey suit. What is that all about? Well, that's the name of one of my chapters. You'll have to buy it and find out. Building the perfect beast. There's even a psychotic chapter in there called Patterson Film Psychosis, and then it goes into recreations of this. It chronicles the major recreations that have been attempted in the past 40 years of trying to imitate the Patterson film to see if it could be done on high budget levels and even on low budget levels. It's been attempted. It chronicles that, and then it goes into the conclusion, the final thoughts. What do I think, and what will you, the reader, come up with? I kind of leave it up to you, but I do tend to point you in some pretty good directions that you probably haven't gotten to before with other material.
Well, you were mentioning earlier about the muscle definition in the Patterson film. I wanted to bring up the fact that I've seen Bob Hieronymus' picture, and the one thing I noticed, he's kind of a butterball of a man, kind of overweight, fat type guy, beefy, fleshy arms, not muscular, in other words. So if he put a suit on and walked in it, it couldn't have had the muscular definition, in other words.
Yeah, well, he is a little older than he used to be. Back in the 60s, I've seen a picture or two of him back in his prime, and he wasn't a bodybuilder, but he was probably a big guy for that time, as big guys were. But yeah, not incredibly defined. So we can conclude that the creature we see in the film, in him, if it was him, I didn't see that kind of muscle definition on him personally in the picture back when it was taken in the 60s.
My point exactly. Nowhere near.
Yeah, so it would have had to have been done in the suit, which would have really been pretty mind-blowing stunt to pull off. In fact, when you try to do that even nowadays with suits, people think you wear a muscle suit underneath this fur, right? And then you get muscle definition. Well, not really. What usually happens is you wind up getting a very bulky look. You try to stuff a jacket with things, or or stuff a costume with things. It looks very bulky. It's not a natural, lean kind of muscle tone that we see in the Patterson film. It's something that's basically never been performed in a suit, especially at that time. What do we have to look at that time period, 1967? We have films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, the beginning of that shows those troglodytes jumping around in the monkey suits, and they're raising all kinds of commotion underneath that mysterious monolith. And that was a really, really good shot at the time of people in monkey suits. But they weren't good enough to fool anybody. I mean, nobody thought for a minute that those suits were that realistic. I mean, you look at it nowadays, they're not very high quality. And then we got Planet of the Apes came out at that time as well in 1968 period. Those suits were done by master technician John Chambers. He worked on all those, and those were good masks. The bodies themselves looked just like a person in a suit. So what we see in the Patterson film looks nothing like what was available at the time in Hollywood or in a costume shop, which lends a lot of credibility to what Roger Patterson filmed.
Right, and another thing I would point out is even if you did get a muscular or semi-muscular look, if you were really good at it, then you wouldn't have muscular contraction or flexing as you make as the picture moves or the video moves.
Yeah, very good points. Those have to be done in a very precise way to make them look realistic. So if this was a guy in a suit, I say it again, it was even more amazing than if it were just a Bigfoot creature. Because what we're dealing with is not a creature, but we're dealing with an illusion, a grand illusion, something bigger than David Copperfield making the Statue of Liberty disappeared. And I point that out in my book as well, too. I mean, basically, Copperfield could perform that illusion every hour on the hour, and so could you if you knew how it was done and had the proper materials. It's just a mathematical equation. You do it every time, and you get the same results. Well, we get into recreating the Patterson film. They've all failed. By anybody's opinion, I believe these recreations look nothing like what we see in the Patterson film. They don't display the type of characteristics and detail that we have going on in this Patterson film. It's a very mysterious film.
Okay. Maybe a good place to go right now, since we're getting close to the end of the show, would be to tell us what upcoming events do you have, what's going to be new in the near future for you and your website.
Well, I'm always doing updates to the website, and I'm hoping to write another book, and it's kind of in the works right now. It's kind of top secret, but I plan on writing another book, and I hope you buy the first one and then like the second one when that one comes out. I put a lot of thought into these things, and they seem to be doing well so far. So yeah, I'm sure your listeners will buy a couple and check them out and let me know what they think.
Okay. I'd like to get a copy of that myself. I bet it's going to be very, very, very interesting. I hadn't had a chance to yet. We got a lot of things going on my into the woods here this here month, as why a lot of things going on besides the holidays. But it does sound pretty interesting and enticing. I'm going to get the word around. I want to remind everybody listening that I thank you for coming. I couldn't have a show without you any more than I could without a guest. And if you do nothing but listen, you are participating. And I want to thank you for calling in, listener, Jen. She's one of my regular listeners, and I've gotten to know her name, over the time. But at any rate, couldn't have a show without my listeners. I want to thank you guys for supporting me. I want to encourage y'all to go to Jeff's site. Once again, that URL is www.pattersonfilm.com. And he's got all kinds of information there where you can learn a lot more about him and about the research he's done that he put into this book. And you can get a link to the book there as well, or you can purchase it from his site. I'm not sure how that works. What do you have, a link to a PayPal button on your site or something?
Yeah, you can pay through anything, credit card, PayPal, whatever, right on the website, pattersonfilm.com. And it's all secure checkout, so you don't have to worry about any kind of hackers or anything like that. And
when do you plan to come out with a next book?
Well, I don't know yet. That'll probably be, who knows? I don't want to commit to anything possibly late this year.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
once I do, I tell you what, you and your listeners are going to be the first to know.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Also, while I got everybody here, I want to tell y'all this month's going to be devoted to the topic of lost civilizations, and every guest except for tonight's guest is going to talk about lost civilization, ancient mysteries in one form or another. So you want to keep track of that. You might want to come back this Saturday the 7th when I interview Oberon Zell on lost civilizations. Sounds like a promising show, so I'm looking forward to it. Don't forget to pass my link. Don't forget to pass Jeff's link around. Let people know what you've heard here today, and let them know about him and the work that he's done. And don't forget to pass my number around, and if you like Jeff or like my work, give us a review on the review link on this site. Jeff, do you have any last-minute thoughts?
Well, you're known as Royce Hullum, but are you still going by the Redneck Radio Man?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, well, I got a redneck joke for you. How's that sound?
Okay.
Okay. If you've ever been stabbed by a Dale Earnhardt knife, you might be a redneck.
Okay.
I'll leave you with that.
Now, you got me wondering. What kind of knife is that? All righty.
I appreciate you having me on the show, Royce. You're great. You're a good friend of mine, and I appreciate it.
You too.
God bless you and your listeners.
Okay, you're a good friend of mine too, and I hope to have you back in the future.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.